What you doing here? I come here to hear Miss Shug sing and to see what a nice place you built.
Masculinity. What exactly is it? Does it lie in bronze or charisma? Or is it in one's ability to be a father or the ability to show emotion?
I found my happy thought! Took me 3 days to find it!
Cinema has often embraced the idea that manliness lies within how courageous or strong a man can be.
Bond. James.
In other words, cinema has often depicted the ideal man as badass, suave, or just plain invincible.
This isn't a tranquilizer.
Pussy, you know a lot more about planes than guns. Hello, Pussy.
So now, where do women come in? If not plain sex symbols, women are displayed as vulnerable. They are the damsels in distress. They are the ones who are prone to the emotions men are seemingly not allowed to express. From this, we can examine masculinity and gender as a spectacle in film.
Who is that, Captain?
It's Peter Pan. Has it been?
What are films able to show us to convey the meanings of manlyhood or female agency and so on? Regarded as one of the greatest visual storytellers of our time, Steven Spielberg has been able to depict human emotions, human connections, and human identities in a way that not only makes for a good story, but expands our understanding of people.
Girl, child ain't safe in the family men's. But I ain't never thought I had to fight in my own house.
It's because of his fascination with in-depth explorations of the human condition that we can extrapolate his interpretations of the male and female identity, especially in Parenthood. Spielberg was brought up by his mother, Leia, and his 3 sisters. The female influence of Spielberg's upbringing can be felt among most of his films, if not all. The one that catches my attention the most is in E.T. In E.T., Elliot and his siblings live with their mother, Mary, while his father is off in Mexico with his new love interest rather than with his children. A family dynamic that enforces our idea of Spielberg's outlook on fatherhood. Parents in films are often clueless and detracted from their children's lives. Even though for the most part she's unaware of E.T., we are always shown how involved and caring Mary is towards her children. Spielberg's use of lighting and framing is especially concerned with Mary throughout the film. If she isn't the subject of a scene she's in, when she's on screen, she's still either lit or in the foreground. There are several instances where, even when she's not on screen, her voice is still heard, allowing her to stay involved with the characters and with us.
Hello? Yeah? Jerry! You won't get 4 blocks in this neighborhood dressed like that. Please? No, and that is final. You are not going as a terrorist.
All the guys are.
Hurry, I'm home.
In my opinion, it's a case of size.
Take a look at the dinner scene from early on. The lighting gives extra emphasis towards the mother, who is the source of reason and understanding.
You just probably imagined it.
I couldn't have imagined it.
Maybe it was a pervert or deformed kid or
She
something.
nearly glows when she laughs.
Elliot! Sit down.
As soon as she's upset, she's drawn into a shadow, involving us in her sadness as she walks towards the camera with eyes full of tears.
It's Mexico.
We know that Spielberg feels an intrinsic warmth towards the character. One of the best showcases of Spielberg's identifying with this character is when Mary reads Gertie a bedtime story.
I'll rescue her. I'll rescue her.
There's almost an ethereal aura to her. The lamp in the room gives her a halo. She seems angelic in appearance. Her voice softly echoes as she reads the book, even when she's not on screen. Even the score accompanies this comfort we feel with her. A light piano riff, which sounds almost harp-like, which brings us back to the angelic tone that Spielberg tries to convey with Mary. Spielberg brings this feeling back 19 years later in AI, Artificial Intelligence, when David first calls Monica Mommy. There's a soft, natural light beaming from above, onto Monica especially.
I want you to listen to them anyway.
Once Monica completes the imprinting procedure, Spielberg's knack for non-verbal communication comes into play. Not only can we see it clearly on David's face, but the sudden yet soft chime we hear indicates the shift in David's emotion. He now feels love, and we feel it too.
Monica.
They begin to whisper in contentment as the camera switches from a close-up of each of the characters to a medium shot, where both mother and son are silhouettes in this gentle light. In Empire of the Sun, we see Jamie's father walk right by without noticing his own son in the crowd of children. Even to the audience, Jamie is close to being engulfed among the rest of the children. It's only when the mother comes into the shot with Jamie that he really appears, according with their line of sight. The choir music also begins at this moment. Jamie hugs his mother tightly as the father stands idly by. Jamie slowly closes his eyes as if the feeling of his mother's embrace is what seals the deal. Spielberg's expression of maternal love is powerful, and we see it among most of his films, but that isn't to say he has no regard for the father figure. In fact, he is often sympathetic towards fathers. Catch Me If You Can being one of the best examples. In this case, the mother is the less favorable of the parents. Frank Sr. and Carl are really the two biggest driving forces towards the film's plot. Spielberg's use of motifs between father and son is what really highlights the bond between the two.
Did you drop this?
Two little mice fell in a bucket of cream. The first mouse quickly gave up and drowned.
The second mouse, he struggled so hard that he eventually churned that cream into butter. And he walked out. Amen.
There is no doubt he looks up to his father more than anything else. Frank Sr. here is really the Mary to Frank Jr.'s Elliot. He's really the inspiration, and he leaves a lasting impression throughout the film. Before Frank Sr. passes, we already begin to see the film's shift of attention from Frank's relationship with his father to his relationship with Carl. The second interaction between the two is on the phone. We can tell that Frank is exhausted as he attempts to forfeit to Carl. He wants to give up. Frank is lost and lonely. Carl figures this out. He has found his enemy's vulnerability. At the very end of the call, we get a Dutch angle close-up of Frank and an extreme close-up of Carl's mouth as he laughs, which only makes the laugh seem louder and Carl's words seem more hard-hitting. Carl has the upper hand, which ultimately roots their relationship for the rest of the film.
You didn't call just to apologize, did you?
What do you mean?
You have no one else to call. Oh.
Our protagonist is vulnerable. He puts faith in his father to guide him. and puts faith in his enemy to keep pushing him.
I know, you'll be back on Monday.
Yeah. Now, besides Parenthood, what else is there that Spielberg shows us about the male and female subject? Let's try war. War is nothing less than tragic. It is an abundance of pain, blood, sorrow, and death. It is also a male majority event. Thus, what we are often shown is bravery, strength, and a rush of testosterone. What Spielberg brings to the table in the genre is the harsh realities of war. That it isn't as badass as we might think. Saving Private Ryan holds an essential truth to war in the way it gives us sound, noise, motion, emotion, and so on. The colorless mise-en-scène, the hollow sound of silence met with the paralyzing cries and gunfire of war. The film expresses that World War II was more than a show of power and masculinity. Most men are stricken with terror. They tremble, throw up, while many cry or wail. In the film's climax, before the final showdown, the dialogue is integral to who the characters are. And more importantly, the feelings that Spielberg brings out of his actors that are felt beyond the words.
You know?
Is it really tight?
No, it's beautiful. And she sees me, and she can tell I got a heart on the size of the Statue of Liberty, right?
And Dan's got her shirt up. He's working on this bra, and he's trying to get it off, and all of a sudden, Sean just screams out, "Danny, you're a young man. Don't do it."
Stupid, boyish conversation. It's the root of brotherhood. Masculinity in war is not carnage. It's this brotherhood between the men you serve by. It's the shaky hands. It's the uncoded fear. It's the discoloring of innocence. War films most of the time make for great blockbusters. After all, blockbusters are more or less home to many manly depictions of heroes and the like. Coincidentally enough, it was Spielberg's Jaws that pioneered the blockbuster genre that we know today.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Ironically, the two heroes of the film are far from stereotypical depictions of manly heroes. Brody is a coward who is afraid of water. Hooper is a Jewish intellectual.
It was a shark.
One of my favorite scenes is one of the initial shark attacks where Brody is with his family at the beach. Brody is clearly restless as his fear of water is manifesting his mind. When the shark attacks, Spielberg's use of the dolly zoom perfectly encapsulates the idea of a nightmare coming to life. The worst thing that could have happened is happening right before my eyes. Spielberg is clever and extremely mindful of how he uses the camera to bring out these kinds of internals of his characters. Which brings me back to this scene from The Color Purple. Spielberg frames this in a way which we as the audience can see exactly what each character is internalizing. Harpo stands up to impose dominance over Sophia, while Sophia needs not to stand to impose her dominance at all. Harpo keeps looking back at his father, meaning he is doing this for the sole purpose of his father's approval. The way the camera is positioned and what the lighting suggests, our perspective says Albert is turning his back towards Harpo, that he cannot believe he is letting a woman talk down to him. Celie, on the other hand, looks to Sophia as a sign of hope, as someone to look up to. You can see it in the way the light hits her face. Throughout the movie, Celie is weak and submissive, and it is through Celie the film explores the power of patriarchy in the society of the time. Spielberg has a way of using characters to emphasize each other's characteristics through polar contrasts. Sophia and Shug Avery are kind of the antithesis of Seeley. In this particular film, masculinity is the villain, and that's okay. This way, Spielberg is able to bring out his sub-theme of female empowerment.
Look at you. You're black, you're poor, you're ugly, you're a woman, you're nothing at all.
To me, what Spielberg has been able to accomplish throughout his lifetime as an artist is keeping audiences in touch with his characters.
My name is Frank William Abagnale.
The flawed man, the search for empowerment, the disappearance of innocence. We connect with the vulnerable man, the loving mother, and the needs for courage. Who are we to define men and women? Who are we to define people? Spielberg gives us the chance to see each other differently.